everyone. I'm John Miglosh for the Wisconsin DMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. We're planning a meetup probably the 29th of May up in the Twin Cities, our great second headquarters up there. And so mark it down on your calendar. Usually we put them in the early afternoon, like 3 or 4 in the afternoon, so you can sneak away from your desk a little early. So mark that down. Sometimes I run across advertising that just makes me scratch my head, and glad that I'm in data and not in the creative world. Okay, we're going to talk about creative a few times. So I'm just going to play this a little bit for you, and this is, well, I'll let you listen, okay?
People sometimes tell me, Claire, you can't have it both ways. But that's just not true. My baby's cute as a button, and he only cries soft jazz music. Ah. CarLotz lets you have it both ways. Not yet. They provide the convenience of a dealership and the value of a private sale.
Okay, now that one isn't too bad, although I would contend that no baby will ever get fed who cries soft jazz music. Now here's where it goes off the rails. This is another related commercial.
You know that saying, you can't have it both ways? Totally false. My Winston is just so lovable. And his drool smells like fresh lavender. CarLotz lets you have it both ways too. They provide the convenience of a dealership and the value of a private sale. Super aromatic.
Okay, so, I can't get that drool out of my head. I watched that about 4 times, and I thought I would never go near CarLotz with dog drool. And, of course, you can't have it both ways. So you start with a premise that makes me want to puke, and then you tell me about your company. I can't believe it. Oh, my goodness gracious. And it sounds like a pretty cool concept where they take your car and basically figure out a way to sell it, and you can name what you want to sell it for, and they'll take a cut. And they clean it up, and they put the ads together, and away you go. Sounds like a great idea to me, but I don't know. I just don't know. Anyway, let's get to the real stories. I've taken up on putting the crazy stuff in the beginning so I can chop it out. That one's probably getting chopped out. Okay, interesting story from Digital Media Marketing News in Southeast Asia, DM Asia. Okay, it says the new study, the Omni-Channel Imperative, says an overwhelming volume of data and the inability to integrate data are 2 of the top challenges that enterprise businesses face in Southeast Asia, according to this new report from 345 enterprise businesses in Southeast Asia. As the number of marketing channels expands, brands find it more difficult to make themselves heard. The more successful brands aren't just multi-channel, they're omni-channel. You know, I love the buzzwords. Good Lord. Yeah, they have all the channels. They're everywhere. They're ubiquitous. They're in your mind when you sleep. Right, okay, good. You know, you might as well just say people with big budgets have more channels. But anyway, we won't say it. And the contrast is between, I love this part, between the leaders and the laggards. The loser laggards. Oh, gosh. Anyway, so the leaders have more personalization. The leaders have a 360-degree customer view. I'm going to have to do a show on that because that just sounds crazy. I don't have a 360-degree view. I have to turn my head. And I know no one has a 360-degree view of me because I only have one camera going. So, you know, we'll have to. It sounds like this sounds like a report that puts together buzzwords, okay? And the real big ones have social media, website, email, e-commerce, web, mobile, push. I have all those. How hard is that? How many assistants do you need? Okay, but here's an interesting part. Print media. 41% are using print media. Okay, let's go back here and look at the difference. That's better then that's almost the number that are using personalization or 360. So they're only using a little more, the laggards, that is. Maybe this means you're a laggard. And QR codes, which almost never get mentioned, got some press here. This is the point of the report. This is the point of the report. The point of the report is there is great opportunity for growth for software vendors. Because everybody's unhappy with their data and their other stuff. So the deluge, and I wrote an article called Drowning in Data back in the 90s, and it hasn't changed. And you know what? There's never enough data to make a decision. The more data you have, the more spurious correlations you will find. The more machine learning you have with lots of data will get you automated spurious correlations, which means decision making will be far more difficult than ever. I should end here, but I'm not going to. Okay, moral maturity. I kept thinking that said, but it says mobile maturity. And mobile maturity means that all of a sudden, U.S. adults are spending 3.5 hours per day on mobile devices. Now, how do you know? My mobile device is here. I have a clock. I don't know if you can see that, but that keeps track of me and how much time I have left to go, about 5 minutes. Am I on my mobile device, or am I just using it as a clock? You know, I do like the mobile device because it reminds me when the Brewers game starts, or Tottenham Hotspurs if you're from Tottenham. Anyway, it reminds me of that stuff, and maybe I'll deal with it and maybe I won't, but it's a nice little reminder box. Am I on it when those things come in? I don't even look at them until later, and then once every now and then. But I'm maybe not typical. Anyway, the point is that more time or more advertising dollars will be spent on mobile than on TV. I think that's a pretty big mistake because for the most part, I'm using my mobile device as a clock and there isn't any ad coming up on it. Whereas a TV or TV on mobile, internet streaming, that sort of thing, YouTube ads, those things, they come at you, and it's more trouble to avoid them than it is to not. So I don't know. The point is mobile's passing TV according to this, although a lot of those projections are overrated. Now, do you know what I'm thinking is the question. Do you know what I'm thinking? AI doesn't. Okay? There was a job interview according to this author, and the interviewee said, the applicant, do we need surveys anymore? It was asking about customer experience measurement. And the interviewer said, can you tell me what I'm thinking while we sit here and talk? And the applicant said no. And the article goes on to say that, though this is a leading company in speech analysis, most of the time they get it. They're only a little better than half the time getting it right, whether language is positive or negative on a topic. Okay? So what should you do with unstructured? Well, you should do compliance. You should do experience scoring. What he says here is you need surveys. Surveys give you only a sampling. Speech analytics coupled with 100% recording says you know what happened, but you don't know what it all meant. So you can either have a lot of meaningless stuff or meaningful samples. And I think it makes sense to have some both. I think, they say robots are going to take all our jobs. Why not have people mark down whether it's positive or negative, and then you'll have a scored data set. That's what you need. Okay? So, they're chipping away at this thing, but really they don't know. They don't know what they don't know, I guess you'd say. And so let's go on. The next question is, could a computer write a prize-winning ad campaign? And he goes on to say that most of the hype about computers is that they're it's either hype or a variation of they're coming to take your job. And then he talks about how most machine learning isn't creative. But what's really interesting is, oh, I had another follow up on the noble maturity. I don't know if you've seen this thing, but this is interesting. This is a Chinese click farm where they just have racks and racks of. I like these better because they show the screens, and that these phones have software on them that programs them to click around on major sites and then click around on some minor sites. The minor sites are the ones paying them to influence their traffic. Okay? Who knows what that's popping up about? But anyway, there you go. So, all that said, could a computer run an ad campaign? What's interesting is that they highlight recommendation engines like Amazon's You Might Also Like. What's funny about that, and I didn't double check if it still says this, but when Amazon built it, it said people who bought this also bought. There's no claim that they liked it. There's no claim that you'll like it. It was positively genius. And the way they did it was whenever a book got launched, there were 5 slots. And when a book was bought with another product, one of the slots got filled. A next customer that did it, another slot got filled. There was no auditing. There was no concern that it might not make any sense. I often buy unrelated books together. But on balance, at least it was making an upsell offer, which most companies don't do pretty much at all. So it gave them a start, and it wasn't complicated. And this is the problem with most AI case studies. They're urban legends. Anyway, that said, he goes and analyzes creativity and shows that according to Margaret Bowden, there's 3 kinds of creativity. Putting unusual things together. Electric car, I don't know, that's not really, those were invented before the gasoline engine. But, gas engine and glider or kite was really what the Wright brothers did. And people had done it before that, but that until the engine got to a certain level, you couldn't power an airplane. They both had to be combined, and there's the creativity there. The second type is exploratory, exploring what's possible using existing structures. I've seen some really interesting computer designs where they let the computer kind of solve the problem, and structurally the metal or the oftentimes it's a 3D printer will have many more arcs, and it looks much more organic than a university schooled architect might do with straight lines and things. Really interesting. So and the third type is game-changing transformational. And apparently there are some solutions that are coming up that where the machines are coming up with surprising solutions. The problem is, as I mentioned a couple days ago, that in medicine they're finding now that oftentimes the spurious correlations get pulled out by the machine. The machine sees patterns that aren't there, and the study author will be so excited because of confirmation bias that they'll go with it, and they can't be replicated. And the estimates were as high as 85%. So we have to be a little careful. We might get creativity like the dog drool, whatever company that was. I hope it makes you think.